being in the sports business as long as I've been in it, women's sports has been sort of hanging around the hoop a little bit. I remember, the WNBA has not made, and again, publicly, it's been, sort of out there in the marketplace that no team has made money and the league has not made money, but the league's only 28 years old. I bet you the NFL didn't make money in their first 28 years, or the Major League Baseball, or any of our NBA and so forth. It takes time to build and get the TV rights that you need, and the merchandising rights, and the licensing rights, and the ticket rights, and all the things, and the fan bases. And I kind of saw this inflection point happening in college basketball. I'm a sports junkie, so I kind of see what's going on my social channels and what people are talking about. And the barrier of entry for women's sports, as sitting in the old seat that I had, as a head of Turner Sports, the acquiring rights, the rights keep going up and they're not going down because sports have built-in fan bases. And you saw the most recent sports rights, whether it be the NFL rights or NBA rights and so forth and so on, they're getting very expensive. But women's sports, even though rights are going up, there's still, from an ROI basis, a very, very good ROI based on the ratings that they're now delivering. And so whether you're a sponsor trying to get in to women's sports, or whether you're a media company acquiring sports rights, or now you're seeing brands shifting dollars, because one of the things that we did at HSNE is we focused on categories that typically do not sponsor sports properties. So, for example, the WCC is sponsored by, the title sponsor is Shark Beauty. My phone rang off the hook, when we announced that Shark Beauty was the title sponsor for 3 years. People were like, what is Shark Beauty? They were more accustomed to State Farm, Allstate, AT&T, your typical brands that, get title sponsors, Capital One, that typically go in. But Shark Beauty, a sponsor, a title sponsor in a basketball tournament? Really? And we also went after Sephora for Unrivaled and Wayfair, some of these brands who have never been in sports, let alone women's sports, okay? So as you enter into these new categories, that's only filtering the opportunities. These brands typically showed up on red carpets, the Oscars, the Grammys, the Emmys, but they never showed up red carpet walk-ins for a basketball game, like Sephora did with Unrivaled. They had that red carpet, or they had the black carpet that went onto social. So, the phenomenon was there. I saw it. I kind of felt it, that there was going to be opportunity. And also from a new agency perspective, I said to Chris, and he agreed with me as well, we were both kind of noodling this, is that it would be hard for us to jump into the NBA or the NFL, because a lot of the traditional agencies, whether it be CAA or IMG or Endeavor or Wasserman Group, they're already so deep into those sports. So we thought, hey, if we could jump into pickleball and Formula One and women's sports, we'd have a bigger opportunity to get a bigger slice of the pie. And then putting our money where our mouth was, which is actually putting investment dollars behind it.
And you're hitting home runs in each of these areas, no pun intended here. And you got the Women's Champions Classic, which was a perfect example of that, where you did this deal with Connecticut because they're the top women's basketball program, and you also get UConn. In addition to UConn, you get Tennessee and Iowa and Louisville. How hard was it to get Connecticut to come in on this deal, or was it just a pure financial play for them?
No, and in fact, I remember we got on the phone with our partners, Fox, and we called up Geno, and we had an open conversation. We said, listen, I think there's a white space. The white space is, Geno, there is no early season women's dominant college basketball tournament. There are a million men's. There's the Maui Classic. There's the Atlantis. There's all these great early season men's college, but I don't see a dominant women's, one that would be in prime time on Fox broadcasting, okay? And I go, Geno, this is your legacy. This is something that you should put a stamp on, and we need your help. And I'm willing to, and I said this to him, I said, listen, I know what the women's basketball teams get paid, and I know what the men's team get paid for these early tournaments. I'm willing to put up the money as if it was the same as the men's. So I'm willing to take Connecticut's women's team and put up the money as well as all the other teams. I'm willing to do it in New York. So Geno said, listen, this is a great idea. He said, 2 things I must have. I said, what? He goes, A, it's got to be in New York, the mecca of basketball. And 2, I really, truly think it has to be on an NBA court. He goes, because a lot of these ladies won't ever get to play on an NBA court. And I think that's something that's very special in front of a big crowd in New York. And I said, done. We'll figure it out. And, to Geno's credit, he helped recruit, the teams. And anytime I need help, he's always there to, who do you need me to call? Who do you want me to call? He wants this to be the most elite early season women's basketball tournament. And that's what it's becoming to be.
So you gotta play on this court, an NBA court. How do you get the chutzpah, the guts, the courage to actually take somebody on like that and have an opinion like that?
I always say, go with your gut, right? There's a lot of risk, right? If we don't sell sponsorships or we don't sell tickets, we're out a lot of money because we have to produce it. We've got to promote it. We got to market it. We got to build a website for it. We got to pay the teams, right? So, it's a lot to take a risk from, but if your gut says it's right and, not just gut, but experience, 40 years of experience in this business, I have a feel for that. And women's sports where it was, knock on wood, we've been successful with it. So it's experience, it's gut, and it's taking chances. You got to take, but, calculated risks, right? What they call it. If you don't take risks, you're not going to succeed.
And speaking of another risk, this seems to be somewhat of a risk, is Unrivaled. You're going to get WNBA players to play 3-on-3 on a full court. Take us behind the scenes on that one.
To give Breanna, Stewart, Napheesa, Collier, and Alex Bizzell a lot of credit, they were working on this for quite some time. They were looking at white space. Their white space was, after the WNBA ends, and these women are not getting paid a lot of money, they were mostly going overseas, leaving their families, leaving their children, leaving their loved ones, going to countries they didn't want to go to. We all know the Brittany Griner situation. So they saw this white space of, well, what if we were able to play, make a lot of money, and stay in the United States and be able to be with our families, which means we brought everybody down to Miami, including their families, their husbands, their significant others, their children, and we put up nurseries and had opportunities, and they were housed. Every player got an equity position, so they own a piece of this league. And we're paid, as if they were being paid overseas. So it was a really strong opportunity. And when I was listening to this and listening about that white space and thinking about the names on the back of the jerseys, I said, can you imagine if this was the NBA? You couldn't get it done in the NBA, to be honest with you, because, even though you could think the names, whether it's, LeBron and Kevin Durant and Curry and Draymond Green and all these great names, they make too much money to say, I'm going to take 3 months and go play. Yeah, and they didn't have to go overseas, right? And they have a longer season, much longer season. So it wouldn't work. But what was light bulb in my head was, the best names on the back of the jerseys in a competitive sport where everyone has equity, so they're going to market it. And I know where basketball is going right now, and women's basketball. This is a great opportunity. And I said, we got to get involved, not just get involved from hey, let's go help them market it and let's go help sell sponsors, but let's invest. Let's put our money where our mouth is. And so we invested in the league. And we're happy to do it because there's a new round coming out, and the valuation on this league is only going one way, which is up. And so the timing was right. I think the most important thing, though, if I had to say, is the product on the floor. Had they treated this more like a scrimmage, it would not be successful. but because they're playing for money, they're playing for equity, and the quality of the product on the floor was great. And that's what made the league. Names on the back of the jersey and the product on the floor.